Majority of Americans want to see this. They want to see some form of reform. And the president is certainly want to make sure that he is aware we're majority of Americans. I will say, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were in a gaggle, a range of conservative legal experts and Republican elected officials have voiced support, for example, term limits, which was part of what the president laid out yesterday.
All right, well, a lot of people might support what the president wants to do with some change to the Supreme Court, but far from everyone, and certainly deemed dead on arrival in the House by the Speaker there and the Republican leader, saying much the same thing in the United States Senate. We thought we'd touch base with Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, very instrumental in the Biden campaign, very instrumental in this campaign to revamp the court. Senator, always great to have you. First off, on this, it's deemed to be a Herculean attempt that's not going to succeed. No way, at least this year, with this president, right through next year. So what do you think?
So the question of Supreme Court ethics and transparency is one that just 2 years ago, I introduced a bipartisan bill in the Senate with my colleague and friend, Senator Cornyn of Texas. It passed unanimously, and it was signed into law by President Biden. That bill required all federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, to report on any stock transactions, any stock holdings in any businesses that might appear before them. Here we are just a few years later, and a similar bill on Supreme Court ethics and recusal and transparency passed the Senate Judiciary Committee on a straight party line vote. That's because there's now been reporting that one justice, Justice Thomas, accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts, of travel, of hospitality, of physical assets, a trailer and a house that he never disclosed or reported and then didn't recuse.
But this measure is much bigger than that, right, Senator? The ethics issue that you address is something worth addressing. You're quite right. But this goes into term limits. This goes into dealing with decisions that have already been made and getting new laws and amendments in the Constitution to deal. This is much bigger than what you originally came up with. This goes way beyond ethics and things like that, right?
Yes, Neil. Yesterday, President Biden spoke at the LBJ Library in Austin, Texas. He was commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. And in that context, yes, he made several proposals about the Supreme Court and ethics and recusal, about term limits for justices, a practice that is widely adopted, in fact, uniformly among other advanced democracies, and some other proposals. I was focusing on one where I have recently moved legislation through the Senate, and one where I think we could still take a vote this Congress and should take a vote this Congress.
So let me take a look at the bigger picture, your relationship with Joe Biden. You were obviously concerned about this pile-on with him, or what appeared to be a pile-on. I don't know what was presented to the president to say that he had no chance and should step down. We still don't know the details. To be fair, the president himself really never explained it in the speech. Was it that? Was it this issue where he was shown polls that with him at the top of the ticket, the ticket and the down ticket candidates would all lose, and that it had to do with his cognitive abilities, the people who thought that he wasn't up to the job? Was that what undid him?
Look, Neil, I'm not going to get into private conversations I had with the president, but I will say this. What unites all Democrats is clarity that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are not the best leaders for our country moving forward. In fact, in some critical ways, they pose a real threat to our standing in the world, to our opportunity and our prosperity and our security here at home, and that he endorsed his vice president, his trusted partner in everything that the Biden-Harris administration has gotten done in this term, and he trusts that she is the one best positioned to finish the job and to move forward. We here in the Senate, Neil, in just 2 days, are going to vote on an important piece of tax legislation. It passed the House overwhelmingly, and it would continue some of those core Biden-Harris policies. A child tax credit that would help advantage families with children, and a small business tax credit that would help with innovation, investment in manufacturing equipment, in research and development. My hope is that if Republicans here in the Senate are pro-family and pro-growth, that they will join Democrats in voting for this important piece of tax legislation.
I don't know how that. I don't know how that will go, Senator. You know the mechanics better than I do, but.
Yes.
You did sound a little upset and bitter about the way many in your party treated the president. To others, it looks like a quick switcheroo to do better in the general election, but that there's not a lot of loyalty in your party, and that you have a bad poll, a bad debate. I know this debate was particularly bad. You can be thrown out on your hiney, and Democrats don't have much loyalty toward each other.
Well, Neil, I would disagree.
The same way. Do you feel the same way that the party was fair to the president? Because literally hours before this move, the president was saying he was going to run. Something happened.
So, Neil, the outpouring of affection and support for our president, the number of members of Congress and longtime supporters, Delawareans and world leaders who've reached out to him, many of whom have reached out to me to express gratitude for his service, his lifetime of service, and for the incredible difference that he's made.
Are you bitter
has
about
been
it, Senator?
heartwarming.
Was he upset
No,
about it? Was he upset about it? Were you upset about it?
Neil, I was with him yesterday. He is looking forward. Part of the point of the speech he delivered in Austin yesterday was to lay the foundation for what he intends to do, both in the last 6 months of his presidency and after the presidency. And the other thing he did yesterday is just a reminder of Joe Biden's spirit and personality. After we went to Austin, he flew to Houston to pay his respects for a member of Congress who recently passed. Any other president, knowing he wasn't running again, knowing there wasn't any political upside, might have made a brief appearance. President Biden went and spent 45 minutes with the family, even though it was 10 o'clock at night, and we didn't get back to Washington till well after 1 a.m. One of the things I've always admired about Joe Biden is his compassion, his commitment to others, his grace. And so I spent the day with him yesterday. He is optimistic about the future. He is supporting Kamala Harris for president.
Do you think the party returned that compassion and grace? The rap is no. It looks kind of conniving and opportunistic.
Well, many of us who support Joe Biden as our president and who look forward to his leadership in our party at the convention this fall and next year and into the future are looking forward to demonstrating just how much we respect and admire our accomplished president, who's done so much on the world stage and here at home for America, for our middle class, and for our security.
All right. Well, you've been a loyal friend, and that is an understatement. Chris Coons, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.